Greetings, lords and ladies. My name is For Extraordinaire, and we are here today to talk about the newest dev diary, all about artifacts. Let's get into it. The dev diary today discusses artifacts. It goes more into depth about the purpose of artifacts, how they go on to affect your court, and the legacy the artifacts leave behind long after the ruler who crafted those artifacts has passed away. So there are a few new options the dev diary reveals to us today, many of them returning from CK2. For example, you can specifically name your artifact, but a new addition is that you can devote the artifact to a specific person. For example, you can devote it to your wife, as seen here, or God for some piety, I believe. They haven't shown the options here, but I believe if you devote it to your wife, you'll probably get some prestige or some spouse opinion modifier. And then there's also various inspirations other than that, depending, I guess, on a random dice roll, which will definitely give some more flavor to the gameplay and kind of change how you want to play around. Because I believe if you play differently, you can kind of affect the RNG and kind of how that rolls and generates different options for you, if that makes any sense. Here we can see King Louis the Younger of Italy, fully decked out. This guy is a chonk. Look at this. He has a dagger. It looks like, I don't think that's a sword. That's pretty short. A full set of armor. He has a nice French crown, despite being the king of Italy. Definitely some cuckoldry shenanigans going around here. He has a pretty little ring, and then he has a ton. He basically has an entire armory. Backing his court. So he's just completely loaded up. And you can see here with the French crown, he's made some choices to get some extra prestige, and then he wants powerful vassal opinion to keep his subjects in line, basically. And it even has a little description based on how he's created this, and it's kind of its purpose, and it says, God is my strength. So I guess he gets some additional prestige from that. I thought he'd get some piety, but apparently the Catholics just, the Italians here, are not so virtuous. So one neat thing is that inspired characters, similar to CK2, though I think the process was a bit less involved. While they are creating your artifact, you can kind of customize it. The dev gives an example here. If you have basically an artifact and you want it to be more prestigious, you can make it have superficial features like shining brightly or whatever. But if you want it to be more tactical and actually aid you in combat, you can make it more fit for mountain terrain, like with a set of armor, for example. And here we can see the kind of process getting involved where the artisan or the crafter is asking the liege how they want the piece to kind of turn out. So you can cause more casualties, or encourage knights kind of to rally them, or you can just say whatever, completely waste that. So I definitely would take these, unless it's like a really negative option, or they're just really bad outcomes you don't want. Maybe you can just refuse it and then hopefully raise your chance of getting another inspiration dialogue. So you can just re-roll, I guess, in a sense. But there's also the fact of repairing rusty artifacts. In CK2, I don't believe artifacts had any durability whatsoever. This is changing, so you can't exactly hoard artifacts. And thankfully, it means that you're not going to have a bunch of useless artifacts piling up in your court 24/7. There's actually going to be some kind of limit. So you're not going to be scrolling through like 3 pages of artifacts. You're not going to have like a whole war room just full of useless iron and swords and all of that. So you can basically pay to reforge. It doesn't seem too expensive, but I'm gonna guess the reforge cost is probably more expensive depending on how expensive the item itself or how valuable the item itself is. So obviously, if I'm just going to be repairing a rusty warhammer here, or a sturdy battle axe, it'll be 25 gold. But if I want to repair like the crown of the Emperor of Japan or the sword of Charlemagne, that's probably going to be like around 1,000 gold or something crazy like that, I assume. If it isn't, that would probably be very nonsensical, because that stuff is very, very prestigious and probably expensive to make. So sometimes, however, just repairing an artifact doesn't really strike your fancy. And here is another option, again, not present in CK2, where you can basically, I already checked this one. Actually, I didn't, but you can basically, very similar text, I apologize, but you can basically reforge, I should say, your artifact. And this gives you some additional options. For example, you can now put it on a pedestal and show it to the rest of your court instead of just using it in your own personal, if I'm understanding this correctly, your own personal kind of set of equipment. And then it also gives you some unique modifiers, changes the visuals. And now it is, I love this little 3D model and gallery, but now it just sits in your court instead of just being used 24/7 by you. So, and I believe it is also more durable once you reforge it. Since it's not seeing as much use, that kind of makes sense. So your next logical question is probably what is going to happen once the artifact reaches 0? And as far as the devs have revealed, it will basically become useless and break. They get destroyed and disappear from the game, quite literally. So you want to make sure if it's a useless item, you at least have some options. You can either sell it to some kind of antique collector or a scrapper. You won't get too much gold from that, but at least you'll get some kind of reward, whether it be points through learning how the process of scrapping goes about, or just pure gold in case you're desperate for some extra income for your economy. Perhaps it's in a bit of a rough state. And then finally, if you have a certain reputation, if you're using this sword to kill a bunch of minorities, or if you're doing something really violent and dark, and just drive out the undesirables from your kingdom, or if you're just using it to just do a ton of dark deeds, you can basically get a really, really dark modifier or a very disappointing modifier. For example, I think this is not necessarily a bad crown, but if you do something bad with if you get a certain bad event, I think the RNG is probably pretty low depending on how good your ruler is. But you just need to be very, very careful. If you have a ton of bad traits and you have very high stress, what happens here is that you lose a ton of stress, but you really drastically decrease the durability of this specific item, the jewelry casket, for example. And then there's also cursed rumors, different events that pop up that kind of curse your artifact, and you definitely don't want to have that happen, as it has disastrous effects, I believe. They haven't really gone into too much detail for how the cursed artifacts kind of work, but I'm just going to assume there's going to be some kind of prestige drop, maybe other negative effects like a decreased lifespan or things like that. I don't know, maybe the armor is a secret evil artifact that saps away your life force. Who knows? But that's just a quick little look into the artifacts here for CK3. I don't want to get too into it. I'll let you guys read the rest of the dev diary, but a lot of exciting features here. Some returning from CK2 and a lot more modified features that make sense with durability and being able to reforge artifacts to kind of make them something stronger if the first time around you weren't very pleased with the outcome of that artifact. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been For Extraordinaire. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, and I hope to see you guys later. All right, love you guys. Peace.